Hello, my name is Dieter and welcome to Win Some Loosemore. You join me for Why I Like, where I take you through some of the games in our collection and I tell you why I like them. And today I'll be telling you why I like Wingspan. Wingspan is an engine building game for 2 to 5 players, also has a solo mode from the Ultima factory that Stonemaier tends to work with, about building up birds within your nature preserve, whatever the word is, activating different powers. You've got 3 different terrains. Well, I don't show you what it looks like and how it works, and I'll come back and tell you why I like Wingspan. Now, as you can see, there is quite a lot of stuff, and this is just one person's player board. Everybody would have their own, so for the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to take you through everything in the game, just give you a rough overview so you get how it works. At the beginning of the game, everybody gets 8 cubes of their colour. I'm playing red. 2 bonus cards, which will be scoring at the end. I've got Wetland Scientist, which says birds that can only live in the water. If I have 3 to 4 of them at the end of the game, I'll get 3 points. If I have 5 or more of them, no, 5 of them in fact, because there's only 5 spots for water birds, I will get 7 points. And the other one, anatomist birds with body parts in their names, again 2 to 3, 3 points, or 4 plus birds. And then it tells you some of those. And what's really clever, it tells you how many of the cards might meet this criteria, so how likely it is you're going to do that. And then everybody gets 1 each of the 5 foods: fish, invertebrates, berries, grain, and rodents, and then 5 bird cards. So we've been given 10 things, and we need to then work out what to keep. So we only get to keep 5 of the 10 things. So now we see I already have 3 birds that meet that water only. In the top left of every bird, it tells you what kind of habitat they can live in. I will score points for ones that live in the water only, so I probably want to keep at least 2, if not all 3 of those. Let's discard these. And what do? Roll dice. Also, I would have to pay for them. If I want to play a bird, it would cost me the food here. If there's a slash, it's one or the other, and here it's a plus. This, I'm not going to be able to build for a while, so I'll get rid of this as well. So that's 3 things I've got rid of, so I need to get rid of 2 more. I want to keep the invertebrate, I want to keep the fish, because that will pay for these 2. Let's get rid of the rodent and the berries. Let's send that back. So, of the 10 things, I now have 5. That's the initial decision. Let's have a look at the player board very briefly. The player board has on it, firstly, look at that, it's lovely. Sorry, the shadows are not being very helpful, but that is a beautifully illustrated board with 3 different types of locations on it: the forest, grassland, and the wetland. But also here we've got the 4 actions that you can take. There is play a bird, which I showed you costs food. We've got gain food, which I'll explain in just a moment, lay eggs, which makes more sense, and draw bird cards. So let me just pop this down. Let's do draw bird cards first. So draw bird cards along here. If I want to take that action, I take one of my cubes and I play it on the leftmost available spot for that action. So this row is the action. This has nothing else in it, so this would be it. It shows me the picture of 1 card, and so I would draw 1 card. Now I can either take from the deck, as I've just done, or take one of the 3 available. Let me just show you these birds. Aren't they lovely? Now I don't necessarily want any of these because none of them are water only, but you'll notice that there are brown, pink, and white strips at the bottom. I'll explain what all of those do when we get to play a bird in just a moment. So that would be how I would draw a card. Lay eggs, I can't do right now because I have no birds down. Now if you notice on the birds, there are pictures of eggs. This one has slightly more, so this one has 3, these each have 2. So if these birds were here, and I did the lay eggs action, again leftmost spot, it's currently this one, it shows me a picture of 2 eggs. I can take 2 eggs from the supply, and this is the supply for everybody, and place them on the birds. Now each of them can take 2, so I could either split them or put them both on 1. You cannot exceed the number of eggs shown. So that would be lay eggs. Gain food. We have this beautifully unnecessary dice tower here that's made to look like a bird feeder. And we have these lovely little printed wooden dice, each with a different type of food. Now at the beginning of the game, these are put through the dice tower. And so if I want to take food, again, leftmost spot currently shows me 1 die. So I can take 1 die, whatever it might be, take it out of the feeder, and take a token of the food that it shows. And that goes here. If at any point all the dice are taken by different players over the rounds, we then immediately put them through the dice tower again, showing different ones. This is the one special side. You get to choose invertebrate or wheat for that one. If, let's say these are taken, you go to take food and they all show the same side. So that could be 1 die, 2 dice, 3 dice, 4 dice, doesn't matter. If they all show the same side, you can choose to re-roll them before you take the food to give you a little bit more variety. So that would be gain food. And then the top action is the one that I would do first, which is a little harder to notice, is this play a bird. So to play a bird, go to my hand, I pick a bird that I want to play. Feathers are the points. So each bird at the end of the game would be 4 points. Other ones are worth different amounts. We've got 2, 2 and 2 there. There's some higher point ones, there's some that are worth none, because birds have these effects. As I said, there's brown, pink and white, and I'll explain in just a moment. Let's build this one, because each bird has a nest type as well. Let's look at these. So they have different images here for different nest types, and that may score us points at the end. This star counts as all of them. It's a wild nest, so I'm going to pay my invertebrate because it costs me that to feed it. Pay my invertebrate, and I have built a card. Good. Now what you'll notice up here, let's see if I can zoom in, it might be a bit noisy, and there it is this end of round board. Now at the beginning of the game we put these tiles down. There are 8 of them in total, each with 2 sides, so it could be different things. And at the end of each round, and the round consists of using up all your cubes, we then look at this and say, for round 1 currently, birds in the forest. I have none, so I would score none for it. Whoever had the most would score the most points, and so on and so forth. And so that also adds different strategies. So here we've got round 1, birds in the forest. Round 2, total birds. Round 3, those clutch nests, this type that I showed you. Focus, there it is. This type that you have with eggs on. And the last one is tree nests with eggs on, a torch, is that type there. So now that I've played this bird, this is the difference here. We slide that cube over. If I now want to draw bird cards, this one is occupied, I now go to this one. This is the leftmost one. And this one still shows me 1 card, so I could draw 1 card, but it also shows me that I could pay an egg, if I have one, to draw another card. And so as you build cards during the game, these actions get better and better. Draw 2 and pay for 1, draw 3, and here draw 3 and maybe pay an egg for another one. And so you're filling it up, making each action better. And then when I've taken that action, so let's say I've drawn 2 bird cards, I know I've cheated, but I've drawn 2 bird cards, I then slide the cube to the left, all the way back, and every time it hits a brown action, this is where those different colours matter, I do what it says. So my little willet here says when activated, so when the cube's on it, roll all dice not in the bird feeder. Currently they all are, so this wouldn't activate. If any are fish, gain a fish and cash it on this card. So if that did happen, and I got fish, I would take one of the tokens, store it on the card. Each cached food type gives me a point at the end of the game. Then it goes left again to Forster's turn. And this one says, when activated, draw a bird card. If you do, discard one from the end of from my hand at the end of the game, end of the turn, sorry. So I draw another one, and so now I would have to choose one to discard, and we'd look at different things. See, this one's only worth 1 point, but its action is probably very good. This one's worth 4 points and has a white action, so let's just say I discarded that one, doesn't matter. So, brown actions happen every time you slide the cube along. So this is a forest one. If I then took food, I'd do that, potentially play a card from my hand to get a second one, then this would activate. Gain 1 wheat from the supply and cash it on this card, similar. And that would be it. A pink effect happens on somebody else's turn. Now in a 2-player game, that's nice and simple, it's the other person. But in a 3, 4, 5-player game, you have to pick one time when this would activate. So once between turns, when another player plays a forest bird, gain an invertebrate from the supply. If you do that on the first person next to you, you cannot do it again until you've had your go and it goes round. Or white abilities happen when played. So if I built this one, immediately says play a second bird in your forest and pay its normal cost. So I could, because this one could be built in the forest, build this if I can pay the food and eggs. The reason for building eggs is to get more birds. Again, always it's the leftmost spot. So if I want to build now another bird into the forest, the leftmost column that is free for the forest is this one. So I would have to put my cube there. This is the most confusing bit for some people. And there shows 2 eggs. So not only would I have to pay invertebrates or an invertebrate and berries to build one of these into my forest, I would also have to pay 2 eggs from my display to do that. Eggs on your display are worth points at the end of the game. There's a lot more that I could show you. These would be replenished, and every round they get reset and replenished. There's a lot more I could show you. There's just a lot to it. It builds itself up. At the end of the game, you go through the score for each of the things, your birds, your bonus cards, end of round goals, eggs, food on cards, and tucked under cards. Again, there are effects that do that. At the end, tot up the points. Whoever has the most points is the winner. So why do I like Wingspan? Well, the first thing, and this is often the first thing, is the artwork and the graphic design, the aesthetic of the game is beautiful. This is an incredibly illustrated game, incredibly designed visually. The artwork is amazing. On all of those 170 different cards, you've just got this brilliant artwork of all the different birds. I've had several people, when they finish playing the game, whether they won or lost doesn't really matter, just sat there looking at the cards, just looking at the detail on them, and then that they've matched the powers that they have within the game to the type of bird it is just incredibly clever, really enjoyable. And those player boards are well set out. I would potentially want the top row a little bigger, just so it's clear. That's been the one sticking point when teaching this game, is that's separate. That is one of the 4 actions, because the others are the size, the height of the cards. Those 3 are much clearer. That top one ideally would be a bit bigger, so visually people new to it get that, but I see why they didn't. It would make that player board just even bigger, and it's a good size already. But yeah, it's lovely to look at. It's lovely to look at the board when you have nothing in it, and then as you fill it up, it looks great. Just looking at all the birds, seeing how they relate to one another, the different engines that you're building up is just really good. Now, in terms of gameplay, it's really interesting. Each time I've played, I've tried to shuffle through the cards to see different things, and I still haven't seen probably even half of the cards yet. There are that many, and it's got that random element because it's down to drawing from that pile or seeing the 3, but it's random each time because it's the draw of the cards that determines which ones come up. There's no strategy really that you can play until you know a couple of what you've played. You know a couple of the birds do these things, cool, I'm going to build it around that. or the end of game bonuses that you get at the beginning will help you at the beginning to go, okay, I need to find birds with people's names in, or that have colour in their name, or are this size, or whatever it is. It helps you just to start off going, okay, I know a bit of what I'm going after. And then there's end of round goals that just, again, each time just go, just here's something extra to go for. Allow you to manipulate that a little bit, and that's good, but it still feels quite lucky. It still feels like I'm having to make the best out of what I get, which is more tactical rather than strategic. I generally prefer strategy games, as does Kirsty, but we have enjoyed it, and it's brilliant to teach new people. I've had great experience each time of teaching new people. Yes, I might have to remind them about the sliding the cube across. If they're not gamers, that's quite a gamer thing. That's not thematic, if you like. But the way that the actions are set up is so helpful, because you've done that initial choice. Here's 10 things, 5 bird cards, 5 food, keep 5 of them. You immediately know, I want to play this bird. That's probably the first thing you're going to do, unless you've done what I did once and think you've set it up right and done exactly the wrong thing and couldn't do anything at all. Unless you do that, which is incredibly unlikely, your first action is going to be play a bird. Cool. And then you may have another bird to play, but you may need to get food, and so you learn how to do the get food action. Cool. And then you might play another bird, and then you've got no more cards, or it might now force you need to pay an egg to build another, to attract another bird. Okay, so now I need to do the lay eggs action that teaches you how to do that. Now I have no cards. Oh, now I have to do the pick up. But it just, step by step, kind of teaches you those first 3 or 4 turns, that first half of the first round, just eases you into everything that you will need to know how to do. And that's very clever, very clever. A real credit to the design of this. Elizabeth Hargrave has done a brilliant job in development with Stonemaier as well. Just making that introduction to the game really good. And that first round is probably longer than the last 2 rounds combined, even though there's only now 3 actions less of the 8. You've still got a good 5 actions, but that 5 and that 6 action round are so quick, and you're like, oh no, I quickly need to do everything. That first round, it just allows you to take that a little bit longer, and it's a little slow, but not in a, oh quick, come on people, just do something kind of way. Just, okay, it allows me just to ponder a little bit more, think about what I'm doing, because once you're halfway through the game, you know exactly what you're trying to do. It's just doing it as fast as you can to be able to finish all the things you want to do and optimize your route to that goal. So in terms of the design balance and introducing new players, it's brilliant. No one's going to be offended by this theme. No one's like, oh, I hate birds, how dare you suggest a game about birds. Whereas fantasy or something like that, people go, oh, it's not really my thing, I don't like that design, or it's a bit generic, or it's too dark or too silly. It just solves those arguments. Some people are super passionate about birds, in which case, great, they're on board with this theme. Or you're like me and you go, birds exist. But isn't this artwork amazing? And aren't the mechanics within this game just really nice, really smooth? So that is, right up, Wingspan by Stonemaier Games and Elizabeth Hargrave. Thank you very much for watching. You can subscribe to this channel if you haven't already to stay updated when we produce new videos. You can follow us on Twitter at WSomeElmore, on Facebook we have a page, and on Instagram as well. I have been Dieter for Winsome Loosemore. I look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.